next step is to put everything into a square. And like I said, don't worry about fitting it in this square. You just want to make a square. So what I do usually pick kind of like some big piece maybe. And I'll start with this square because it's sort of easy to see it there, but I'm not going to worry about fitting it in this square. I do want to keep some sort of relationship to things a little bit. It might be easier, like, say, for instance, if I wanted to paint a cuff on my arm, it might be nice to have them geologically related to each other in Photoshop so they're right next to each other so that I could paint from one arm across to the other arm. Like this, if I took my paintbrush and I made a paint stroke across like that, I'd have, say, a blue paintbrush, I put a line across here and a line across here, that would give me a line all the way around my arm. If they're in two different places, it can be a little bit awkward, but it doesn't really matter that much. So what I'm trying to do now is just sort of get these things into position and make kind of a square. They do not have to be the direction that they were. You can rotate them. It's like this one's a little bit awkward in that respect, right? This is the legs. Let me do a select shell here. It's getting a little hard to... okay. So once I get them kind of into a square shape like that, now I can kind of come through and start to really try to position these in such a way that they fit even better, right? So now I'm going to try and come through and really try to position these to take full advantage of all the space that I have. So I don't want them touching. Again, a lot of this comes down to what you understand and how you know how to use Photoshop. Like, I don't really know everyone's abilities with Photoshop, quite honestly, so it's hard for me. But try rotating this the other way so I can get them to fit a little bit better. This is kind of a bummer where it pops out like that. I mean, if I could get, these two just, what's that? Okay, I don't think it's going to help me, though. I think it's going to be worse. No. Yeah, so, you just have to do the best you can. It's not always going to be that you can get them the way you want. Might have been maybe better to rotate these instead and have these on top. So basically, this is what you guys are doing right now. You're trying to figure out a configuration to get this as best in the best square that you can. Can't scale them, remember. All you can do is move them and rotate them. Scales are already set. You just spent a lot of time on that, right? So theoretically, I think I was better off the way I had it before. I think so. Well, since I have this extra space, I'm going to take advantage of it and just kind of give myself a little bit of space around things. Okay, so there's a square, right? Probably get this a little closer. So then what I do is I just take a selection of all of it and scale it down and move it into this square. And again, you know, I'm kind of looking at my head. I want my head to be as big as I can get it, but my arms are already are already touching a little bit. Not ideal. I wish I could get these a little bit better. I'm feeling a little like I could do better, but what do you think of that? I don't know. So anyway, you see me kind of messing around with trying to get as what I want to do is I want to try and be as much as possible, leave as little blank space as possible, right? So that we're taking advantage of every pixel we have, right? That's kind of the goal. So I want these pieces to take up as much of this space as possible. You know, it's with the way we're making this shape, it's going to be a little bit difficult to do that, I think, quite honestly. Okay? And that's how I want to leave that, just like that. So I'll give you guys just a moment to get these things into a square like this, and then we'll meet up one more time. So go ahead, and those of you doing your projections, go ahead and start again. Yeah.
I have a couple of ones that I didn't project because they're under the skirt. Does that matter? Or?
No, you can just make them solid if you like.
So when you selected them and you scaled them all down, is it okay that it changed on your character too?
Oh yeah, it'll change. Yeah, so yeah, when we get smaller, all the squares will get bigger, right? So
they
the
will fix it when they're.
no, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. So I reconfigured mine a little bit to get a better distribution. I got a little more scale on them, but you know, my head's not getting anywhere near what I'd hoped. It's like more like 300 pixels.
How are you able to drop the checker pattern in the box?
What's that?
How are you able to drop the checker pattern in the box?
That's that blue head, the head with the blue hair, right up here.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do kind of being a little bit picky up there, you know, don't be too picky about getting it perfectly square. Trying to be too, you know, right there. This top right. Got it?
Yeah.
So about the-
Yeah.
I think everyone's there. Yeah, I think it's better to leave it relative because then your brush sizes change in Photoshop. You won't notice it in Photoshop.
I would scale it down.
You'll notice it when you bring it back in. So yeah, it's tough. Okay, ready?
To scale it down.
Yeah, we'll get it in that. You got it in the box?
No, I don't have it in the box.
I'm waiting for
Oh,
you.
am I supposed to put it in that box?
Yeah, like that.
Oh.
So the next step is to output that right there as an image, okay? So we're just going to export a picture of this, just like a screenshot, okay? This screenshot is a template, like a tracing, something to trace to in Photoshop, okay? So it's not really this output document, we're not really using it for anything except for us to understand what this looks like when we're working in Photoshop. Right? And we want everything in Photoshop document to match this configuration. Okay? And that's the only reason we do this. Okay? So if we knew where everything was, we could just go into Photoshop and paint it and it would be perfect. But since we won't know where everything is, we'll need to bring this into Photoshop, which gives us an idea of where to paint everything. Okay? So let's go ahead and output it. Output is in the UV texture editor, and it's in polygons, and it's the very bottom command, UV snapshot. If you have managed your folder or your project, it will go into your images folder. It'll be called out UV. There's a couple settings here you'll want to change. Size is by default 256. Always UV textures are always going to be square documents, not rectangles, okay? So if you make a rectangular image, the pixel information will have to be dealt with, but it won't show. It'll only show a square. It'll only show the shortest side of your box, right? So it'll always be a square. So these will always really be squares. So if I type in one number on one, the other one will automatically update. So I'm just going to type in 1024, hit return, and they both go up. And you can see that really, 40, you can get a really large image here. I mean,
I'm sorry, where'd you get the UV snapshot?
polygons, UV snapshot.
Oh, this one down.
Our image format, we do not want to use Maya IFF. I tend to use the Targa. In this situation, I can see they have Photoshop here, but what I want is a Targa because that's just the way I've always done it. And also because Targa is kind of a real common output format. You guys familiar with Targa? No? Okay. Cool thing about Targa, a Targa document has an alpha channel running with it, which is why a lot of people output as Targas because it's a lossless compression with an alpha channel running on it, kind of like a TIFF, similar sort of file format. So anyway, it's a real common one. So what I tend to use would be the 1024. My project folder is set, so it's going to my images folder, and I want it to be a Targa document. Okay? All those things are met. I can just say OK. Oh, it says, wait a minute. You must select valid objects. Select polygon, subdivision, surface, NURBS with UVs. So what I need to do is select these as UVs to tell it what to output. So I'll just select all of these as UVs. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And now we'll go ahead and find that. So it's in the temp drive. It's called out UV. I'm just going to take this out UV right now, and I'm going to drop it into my source images folder. It's a nice thing to do because it will when we open it from Photoshop and then we save, everything will save into your source image folder rather than into your image folder, and then you have to move everything later. So this is one move and then done.
One and done.
I'm going to just name it too while I'm here. So I'll call it Middleton UV. And then I'm going to go ahead and open this with Photoshop.
Are you recording?
A couple more things for me to show you, so if you can just leave it right like this. Selecting the spaces and put it on. Yeah.
Yeah, the blue right there. The neck. Oh, yeah, like the neck, that's the arm.
With that? So one person noticed, two people noticed that they forgot to change 1024. They added 256, and when they've opened it in Photoshop, it's quite small. Notice that right away. Good job, you guys. So just watch out for that. Okay, so this isn't a Photoshop course. I'm assuming that you guys know Photoshop, although I know from when we first worked in Photoshop that not all of you know that much about Photoshop. So, at this point, do the best you can with Photoshop. Okay, I'll try and help you a little bit, but I'm not here to teach you Photoshop, okay? So I'm going to try and push you through the Photoshop part, but it should be fun. And the thing to remember is that now, after this class, right, you guys can work on this Photoshop document until the very end of class, right? And so this is something whenever we're running to that time where there's nothing to do, most of you, a lot of you could go and work on your Photoshop document and kind of paint and stuff and work on that for a while. So once we have this done, we can actually go and start applying our character to our rig and actually start working with our rig. We're really close to actually having this working, right? So it's kind of cool. So let's just do the last little bits here. The way I like to clean out a background layer is just by double-clicking on background. And it asks me if I want to create it, rename it 0. It's kind of nice. Actually, there is a mode change that I want to change here. I want to change it to multiply, which you can actually do right here as well. You can do it after or before. I tend to just by default double-click and then change the layers blending mode to multiply. And then the last thing I want to do to this layer is reverse it. So right now we have white lines with black background. I want white background with black lines. So that's just an inversion of colors. Okay, so let's see. I think, what's that again? It's in a image, right? Adjustments, invert, or if you notice it's Command I. I always remember the Command I. It just sticks in my head. So I never really go here for this, but Command I or image adjustments invert, which just turns this now into, it just reverses the colors. So that was 3 things. It was a background layer, so I can't actually change the mode, nor could I invert it because it's a background layer which is locked. So I have to unlock it so that I can invert it and put the multiply on the blending mode, right? So you have to change that background layer first, just in order to do the 2 things that we need to do, right? So it turns into 3 operations, although we're only really doing 2. Okay, once this is done, okay, then I lock this. It's a real bummer when you actually start painting on your template layer, okay? So there's going to be about 3 or 4 of you that don't lock your layer and you actually will end up painting on it. And it's a real drag because then you have these lines stuck with your painting. And we don't really want these lines here because those are the lines that are your geometry. And if you put lines on your geometry, it's going to really show how square your object is, right? So everywhere there's a line or a face, you're putting a line directly right on it, pointing to every vertex, right? So we want this layer, when we're done, we're going to hide this layer, right? And it's not going to come into the image that we actually apply on our character. So this template will disappear, okay? So now that I've done that, the next step is just make a new layer. Now I don't want this on top, I want this layer on bottom. Remember the layer 0 is the template layer. I mean, I might even want to name that template. Now I'm ready to paint. I'm going to get my paintbrush, I'm going to pick a color. What I usually ask people to do is do a quick little painting, right? So this is my head. I'm going to draw a little eyeball here, and a mouth, and an ear. I don't know what that's going to look like. I have no idea. I mean, it's probably the wrong way entirely. I think actually my ear will probably need to go like that. Anyway, that's my head, right? here's my chest, right? So I'm thinking that this is the front of my chest, and this is the back, and this here's the side. Okay, this is the bottom of my foot, and the top. Yeah, I don't know. Is this the front of my leg? I don't know. I'm just gonna put an F here for the front, and a B here for back. And I think this is top because I kind of remember that polygon that I missed last time, and I think this one here is the bottom. If this is the bottom, then this line should line up maybe with this part right here. It's always kind of fun to see if you get it right. If this is the front, then this line maybe lines up with this. Or maybe this. I don't know. I'm guessing right now. This is my heel, which I kind of already know. All of this stuff right here, let me just change my color here. Get something like blue. Oop. All of this right here, this part that's not, doesn't have anything in it. See this part right here? All this stuff here that I'm painting on? All of this doesn't matter except for right here where I just touched that little part there, and maybe where I touched right here. Where I'm touching over lines, that will show, but everything where that blue is, for the most part, it's not going to show my character. Okay, so you can paint over the line. It's not a problem. It's not going to show. You don't have to be freaked out. You don't have to sit here and paint like really carefully to the edge of these lines, right? If it's a red leg, you could just paint a big giant red mark over this. You don't even have to, just as long as it doesn't go over the head. Okay, does this make sense to you a little bit? So let's take about that long to paint this out real quick. Just sort of figure out what's the top, the front. Maybe make some eyeball. It's not a very good eyeball. I'm going to fix my eyeball a little bit. Let me change my brush size a little. Give him a nice little... Let me just go back around again. Your piece is 30%, so don't delete that, no. Don't worry about that. Have you deleted it? No. Okay, good. Just don't look at that. Don't worry about that. Just don't even worry about that. Okay. Don't look at that. I'm not looking at that. I'm not worried about that. Right? sorry, what was your question? I forgot. Make it as a selection of UVs. No. UV set. Okay, I see people actually painting. Stop, please. Just stop, right? Well, not stop, but just be ready, like to output. I'm sorry. I just don't get too into it, but don't. You may be wrong about what you're painting. That's all I can say. You might be wrong. It's like, oh, that's not actually where I thought that'd be at all, right? That's kind of what you're trying to figure out. Plus, I want to show you the last step so we can all get into Maya, right? And then once you see the last process, we're almost at the process where we'll output this now, and then we'll apply it to our character, right? And then we'll actually see it happening.
Does it matter if I didn't do the front one when it was back? It doesn't side.
Just put one front and then we'll find out, right? Some T there. That's the top, I guarantee you.
The two sides.
That's okay. All right, so let's output this. So like I said before, you do not want to bring this layer with you, the template layer. You want to hide that layer so that all you're bringing in is just this pixel information. All we want is this pixel information. Remember, that template is just only so we know how to deal with Photoshop, right? So I wouldn't necessarily know to put that T there if I was just looking at this, right? But it actually, that T is perfectly coinciding with my arm, right? Right? And so that's the whole purpose of that document, is just so we know where to paint. Okay? That's all that's there for. Okay? So here's what we do. I'm just going to turn off that template layer. I'm going to say File, Save As. So this is very similar to what we did with side in the front, right? We're just going to, it's going to be Middleton. I'm going to call it Middleton Body Out. 01 actually. I would assume you're going to end up with a lot of these. It's going to go into my source images. I don't really want to Photoshop right now. I'm going to just bring this in. You could bring it in as a Targa. You could bring it in as a JPEG. I'm going to stick with the Targa. No, I'm going to go JPEG because I'll probably get a blank background. Let's do JPEG and see how it works out. Targa? It's someone's name. They came up with it. It's like a company's name or something. Well, like a GIF is also a name. Like right? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know, quite honestly. So I'm going to say JPEG. In this case, it's going to go to my source images folder. I'll say save. Just use the maximum. This is really just a template. I just want to see how it's lining up right now. Just really quickly, though, I would also make sure that I make a PSD one, just so that I have a PSD. So just like with my image planes, I'm going to want to have my original scan. I'm going to want to have my PSD, and then I'm going to want to have my two outputs. In this case, I'm going to want my original output UV. I'm going to want a Photoshop document. And then I'm also going to want my output, right? So I'm just going to save that. Same place. That way I have all my layer information saved now. And then we can come back into After Effects. Or, excuse me. What are we using? Right. Okay, so we're almost there. Next step is to just replace the file that we created before. So right now, remember we had that it's the the fifth button down. which does bring up this weird interface down here, which again, let's just try to ignore that for now. Although it looks pretty cool. This is the body. This is what I was working with. It was called body, if you recall. And that we needed our attribute editor open. In fact, actually, let's just make a new one. Let's leave that checker one there. Let's just make a new body material. So I'm just going to click on Lambert one more time. I'm going to make a new Lambert. And I'm going to name it body 2. Two, three, four, fifth one down. Okay, we all right? We got a body 2? Yeah. Okay. Cool. One question, just a moment. Same process as making a checker. So it's the color attribute that we're going to add something to. This time it's not going to be a checker. This time we're going to choose a file. We want a file to be the texture. We just created that file. There's 2 files. There's a PSD file and then there's just a regular file. We're using the regular file process, okay? But anyone who really starts getting into this, I highly recommend you look into the Photoshop file property as well. It's kind of cool. It automatically updates. As you change something in Photoshop, it automatically updates it in your Maya file. And you can have multiple layers. So if you really learn about this stuff, to make things look bumpy, and there's all these kind of like ways light, reflect, all this weird stuff, and you can do that all in layers. It's kind of cool, but we're just doing a simple method. So I'm going to click on the little checkerboard for the color. I have my Lambert selected. It's the new one. I named it Body 2. Click on the checker box. It's the 4th one down. It's called File. Just regular file, not PSD file. File. I'm going to click on it. Okay. It's kind of hard to see all the nodes, but here's the nodes that we have created for that. Very similar looking to what you had when you had the checker, right? So now what we need to do is in the file node, if you click outside, just click on the file node. It's the pink one. That's a texture. Pink always texture. And what you're going to do is you're just going to look in your attribute editor, and it's basically asking you, okay, well, what file, right? And there's a little folder next to what file. That just opens it up, so you can search from this folder. I'll click on the folder. It actually opens up source images folder for me. I find my Middleton body out JPEG. I say open. Now the body Lambert actually updates the sphere actually has my image on it. The texture has the image on it. I'll come in here close to Middleton now. And now all I need to do is just apply it. And that's, again, just a middle mouse drag the material, not the texture, right? I have to turn that off. I know you have to go, right? Do you see it?
Yeah.
This is being recorded too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Turn the stupid mission control off. Then I can drag it over. I'm in perspective view. I'm in like shaded with texture and everything, so it's gonna come up just fine. Wow, I got all of them right. I got the top and wow. My arms aren't matching. I thought maybe I could get my arms to match, but they aren't quite hitting the line I thought they would. It's pretty close on the leg, but one leg I got on the back or the inside. And there's my character. Okay? With the texture on it. I know it's not really that exciting looking, but now I know, okay, look. I know what the front is. I actually know where the inside of my thigh is because remember I made a line that I'd hope would match with this on both of my legs. One of the legs is on the right side and the other leg's on the wrong side. So the back leg looks to me like it's on the wrong side of the back leg. So this is the inside of the thigh. So I'm starting to learn about where all the pieces are in relation to Photoshop, right? And that's why I paint it like this first, so I get a sense of what I'm looking for, okay? Then I just go back into Photoshop, lock this layer, right? Because now this is very similar to a template. Okay, and it's kind of, oh wait, what was the front again? And what, right? So now I just use this as kind of another type of template. This one's just so that I know what I thought was what. Now I can come back through and do really cool painting, right? So now like where I saw people doing things like, whatever they were doing, I don't know, some people had some clouds, so, there's some people doing a lot of painting stuff. So one cool thing to think about would be like with your brush, just as you paint out, you might want to think about just making kind of solid shapes like that to fill in, and then maybe if you don't know Photoshop very well, dodge and burn tools are really kind of nice for this sort of stuff, where if you take a burn tool, you can see you can get darkness. So like say if this is the back of the knee or something, kind of darken this out. And it's not a paint. This is making things darker, right? And then the opposite of that is dodge, which would be light. So I can actually kind of make highlights. And it's really kind of excessive. Also, undos with Photoshop are really about history. Okay? So undo, Command Z will just go back once, and then it'll go forward. Command Z goes back, then Command Z goes forward, then back, forward. It never undoes, like continually. If you want to undo, Command Alt Z. Also, just watch out for the tools. Like you can see, this is pretty intense change. If I want to really change that down, I could drop my exposure way down lower. So just look for tools. Every tool will have some changes up here that you can make to your tools in Photoshop. But you can see with a little less, I can actually define a little bit of musculature. Was that the? Don't remember if that was the front or the back, actually. That's the front. So on the front, I might want to like make the kneecap kind of a little more prominent, and the top of the leg, and then maybe underneath the kneecap, I might want to kind of create a shade. So these burn and dodge kind of things are just nice for shadows, like kind of creating shadows for things. This was the back of the knee. I might do like the back of the knee or something like that, right? And so now it's just about going through and you want to look at it without the light, like that's what it's going to look like on his leg right there, right? And it's going to wrap around, so the front's going to be kind of white. Underneath the kneecap, it's kind of going to get a little bit dark, right? And this will all really make it look a lot better, right? The better I am at painting this, the better it'll look, okay? So really, that's kind of where you guys are now, is just painting these things. When you're done, you're going to say save as. You're going to put it out as a JPEG, and you're going to go back into Maya, and then you're just going to reload it again. You're just going to find the file, pick a new file. I would save them differently each time personally, so you had layers to pick through, right? And then just apply it again, take a look how you like it. If something's off or something, go back into Photoshop, tweak it a little bit, come back into Maya, apply it again. And it's basically a back and forth process for us, right? Paint, look, paint, look, paint, look. Okay? Okay?
Okay.
All right, so good job, guys. You know, I kind of pushed you fast. I know a lot of you really had a hard time with that, but you're there and you're doing it. So next class, we're ready to start putting our characters together, which is awesome. Okay, so be prepared. Yeah.
You wouldn't have to do this same process for the other side of the project.
No, not at all. It'll come over. The UVs come over with the other side. As you can see, however,
Looks like
they get flipped, right? What's that?
a Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm still Spider-Man. But it's a little bit goofy because it's symmetrical, right? I was saying that that's a little bit of a problem.
Is that a tooth?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's it's a little bit funny, right? Because with symmetrical drawing, so things like this F, there are ways I can, like, if you wanted to put like a patch on one side and not on the other, like you had it sitting like that. That's pretty easy to change. If I wanted to have an F that went the right way or something, or small changes like that are pretty easy. You really actually have extra UVs. It's kind of getting a little bit esoteric for a lot of people, but this looks like the same thing if I click on this side or this side. Nothing changes over here. But if I click on this side and I take the UVs, it looks like the exact same thing. But these UVs are duplicates that are being applied to the other side. So I can actually move this around the image and get different relationships, right? So if you wanted to get something that had a different portion to it, we could actually just cut out a portion of these UVs and move them somewhere else in the image and put a new Photoshop image somewhere else in like a little hole here. But it's hard if you don't have enough space to do, because you need to have a free hole somewhere. So you can't do a big change, right? Anyway, that's kind of the idea of it. Like I said, this is a pretty rudimentary method to texture a character. Okay, but I've had people have really great results doing it even still this way, and really believable looking characters given enough time. Those people worked a lot outside of class, and they also knew how to use Photoshop pretty well, right? So I mean, without the time and without the skill of Photoshop, it's going to be a challenge to get this thing to look pretty good, right? So, do the best you can with it, right? And have fun with it. Is the main thing I'd say. Like, paint it for fun, right? And have a good time with it, because it's probably one of the funnest things to do, right? And you get really big effect on your character. So I'm going to leave you guys there. Next class, Monday, is a holiday. It's Veterans Day. Check me on that, right? Make sure I'm right.
That is.
Man, sometimes I really mess it up on the dates, I got to tell you, okay? But Monday's free day, so we're not going to be here. Wednesday we'll come in, and I'm feeling pretty confident with everyone that we can start to actually put our characters together. And we're doing really well for time. So we'll have a lot of time for animation, a lot of time for making properties, right? And those of you that want to maybe even texture a couple properties, right? Maybe that's a possibility as well. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, I'm just going to be walking around. We got about 10 minutes of class left. There you go. I'm seeing some hands. I'll just roll my way through. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, right? So anything behind it shows, right? So right through it, there. Okay. Yeah. See. Yeah. Yeah. So not. Yeah. So you've got your arm. So what are you doing? So you've got your UV. What do you want to do? Okay. So you're separating, right? So you're going to click once on one UV, one. You know, they're going to be on a crossing line where lines come together. You have to click on first the UV. It'll be green. Any line, it doesn't matter. You just can't make a marquee select. You can't make it. Just click. Just click. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't click in the middle of the line. There's nothing there. You have to go where two lines are crossing over. So now you can just select all. And then you can move. You can't see it. It's hidden behind your regular move. It's behind. Yeah. And then just click again until you get one. UV. Click no. Click any no, you're in UVs. Just click. No, you are in UVs. Just click and get a UV. Select shell. Which can now be G if you want because you've already done it once. Move it out of the way. Don't put it on top of the other one. Yeah, so they're all separated. Do it again. G. G is in George. Right? That's awesome. Let's click again. You're clicking on lines. You can't click on the line.
Thank you.
It seems like
Thank you. Thank you very much.
not sure if you're, are you not sure where the end of the pointer is? Is that another thing? Like where the arrow is going to, it's very specific. It's the very tip of the arrow. The very tip has to be right on a point. Like that. That's what we need right there. If I'm like right here, it's not going to do anything. If I'm kind of above it, if I'm too far above it, like that, it's not going to click anything. I'm kind of aim, you know, here, but anywhere in here, just click until you, like that. I don't know what I click. Just kind of moving slowly and just kind of finding one. G. Don't put it on top of it. Yeah. That'd be. Good. G. Don't worry about that. A little bit. That's okay. I want to zoom out of that view a little so you can flip it out. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you'll have time.
I just want to know what
Yeah.
it's worth.
Oh yeah, you can bring a tablet. I mean, maybe hard to say. Hard to say. If it's is it big? If it's not a hassle, it's not like I'm gonna say, okay, here's your time to work on it. But if you have time, probably next class, it's good to have just in case you get ahead. We do have a couple here. They always get taken. So it's okay. So you can make it, and you can texture it if you want, right?
Yeah.
If it's just brown, you can just do the same thing you did with the leg. Just do one planar map.
Yeah, I'm just over the back boundaries and stuff. I think we're really fixed. My hair for that one time, all the ones that I didn't fix and nothing else. That's probably not creatable.
No, it's not fixable. Delete some off.
Alright.
Sorry.
That sucks. Yeah, I just realized today, I was like, where's my thumb?
Oh, yeah, I noticed that actually. The projections didn't have it. But
Oh.
yeah, if you add geometry, you have to redo all of it. Right? Yeah. So I. So let's not talk about it. Okay.
She's a character, so I thought having a little embedding with her wouldn't really matter, but she's supposed to show it more.
The only issue is just that when you bring your rig in, you have to modify your rig to fit her curvature. And then all of your curves will be plus and match, so we will zero her out. She'll get back into a straight posture. Like she would in anyway, right? So if you know, so it's not that big a deal. It's kind of make a big deal out of it. But generally speaking, try it, even though she's stooping, think about straight if you can. Like my character's kind of working on this hunchback a little bit too, right? So I wasn't sure about that head. Like, I never really actually made a head coming off that way before I left. But you know, would it make more sense to have him actually looking up to the sky with his head out? You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? Like which way? I don't know. I just chose just to go for it. But so sometimes it's hard to decide. You just can't model it without seeing it that way, right? So anyway, that's the only issue. Otherwise, it's great. It's beautiful.
You have a job just outside of teaching here?
Do I? Not right now.
Oh, I thought you did like work, not Disney, but you know, some production.
I have. Not for Disney. I did production, actually different. I did production theater work.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I come to this through AutoCAD
Oh,
and a sculpture background. And then, yeah, started teaching here, like, that's almost 15 years now.
wow.
And basically taught myself most of it. But I have a lot of friends that do it too, so
Oh,
I
that's
talk to
good.
them. And I took some pretty intensive classes at Stanford. And,
Wow.
but yeah, so yeah, the production side is all like theater.
Oh, that's
Especially
nice.
like MTV
Yeah.
and rock and roll. Industrial theater, they call it. Actually, it's kind of a weird name for it. But like Oracle, when they came out with Java,
Oh,
remember
okay.
JavaScript? So the company I worked for made the all the sets for the convention.
Oh.
I had no idea what we were making. It's like this Java red cup, steam coming off like Java. I was like, what is this thing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
made like giant toothbrushes for Oral-B. It made like taller in this building inflatable rocks for the Power Rangers,
Wow.
and like hundreds of inflatable smaller rocks.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen the Oral-B commercial with that, like, toothbrush that bounces
Oh yeah, this was long ago. This is when they first came with the cross, those cross teeth or whatever bristles.
around. Oh,
We had to like make the bristles to scale. The bristles.
wow.
I was like, are you nuts? Like, and it was the exact same material and everything.
Oh, jeez.
Hey. All right. Oh, it's okay. It's not over there. That's okay. How about I call you back, all right? Okay, bye. You all right?
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm just about done.
Okay,
I'm just gonna set myself.
cool.
And I wanted to, I guess apologize for being so flaky.
Oh,
I don't know, it's because I'm always late. But I recently moved, so I'm still getting used to the drive.
oh, okay.
But, I'm still like, I'm committed, I guess.
I don't get that sense from you.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you heard that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe you're responding to that, but
No, well, I